You can forget a lot of things, Foster Care Nation, but never forget this. You're listening to Unparalleled Studios.
I signal.
Foster Care Nation, listen up. This is
Foster Care and Unparalleled Journey.
strength for the powerless, courage for the fearful, hope and healing for wounded hearts. Hello and welcome back to Foster Care, an Unparalleled Journey with Jason.
And Amanda.
And today we have I'm going to mess it up. Today we have Angelo Grottacelli. Did I get it right?
Good. Very perfect. Thank you.
Awesome. I usually ask ahead of time to make sure I say it right, and I just didn't do that this time. Angelo is an author of the book The Bond. And The Bond, at a glance, because I haven't read it yet, is a book all about his time in foster care and what that's led to. So how are you doing today, Mr. Angelo?
Very good. And thank you very much for having me on your show today. I'm very excited to talk about, number one, the book, and then other issues that I'm kind of really passionate about. If you want to get right into it, my story, believe it or not, happened 50 years ago. I'm 62 years old myself. So I was in foster care when I was 6 years old till I was 18 years old. And it's kind of a circuitous route. My father was a very famous piano player with the Luigi Prima and Guy Lombardo orchestra bands. He played piano for them, but he was also an alcoholic. And so he and my mother did not get along very well. And so when my mother got breast cancer and was put into the hospital, my father put us into an orphanage in Staten Island called St. Michael's. And it was myself, my older sister, and my younger brother. I had a fourth younger sister who was too young to go into the foster care system. They don't let you get in there until you're about 2 or 3 years old. And she was 18 months. So she was put into a foster home where we went to the orphanage. Spent 2.5 years there. And it was a very, very rough place. But you kind of, I learned my mettle, so to speak, there. As a young kid, I would go in when I was 6 till I was 9. And you really had to kind of fend for yourself and kind of, take care of yourself and, have your own boundaries and have your own, what you're willing to take, what you're willing to not take. Even at 8 years old, believe it or not, that happens. I talk about in the beginning, there's a scene where, the orphanage was run by counselors. It was a Catholic organization, but they were run by counselors who were really teenagers, or in their 20s, I would say. So these kids were not nice kids, and they used to treat us badly. They would take things from us. And the big thing was whenever you got something, sometimes I'd get a present from my father. He'd send it in the mail. He never came to visit ever, but he'd sometimes send things in the mail. And that particular week, I happened to receive my Holy Communion. And when you do that in a Catholic religion, in the Catholic church, you get what's called a communion ring, which is a little ring. And because my birthday was garnet, I got it with a garnet stone in it. It was a very small ring, worth $50 probably something. But these counselors wanted to take it from me. So the book talks about, it opens up with a scene where they're holding me down and basically beating me with a belt to tell me to get them that ring. And they had a thing where they would never take the ring from you because that was stealing, right? But if you gave it to them, that means you gifted it to them. But no one ever talked about how you gifted, how they convinced you to gift it to them. So I had made it my thing that no matter what happened, because other things had been stolen from me, I was never going to give up that ring. And it's a little thing, but that in foster care, foster kids have to hold on to things, right? Mm. It could be something big, like a person, or an idea, or it could be something small, like a little ring, but it's something that you have to keep your identity, you have to keep your integrity, right? So I said, I'm never giving up that ring. And here I am, I'm 62 years old. Look what I have in my hand.
Oh, wow.
That's amazing.
Because I was never giving this ring up. And it's still to this day, I look at it and I think about those days in the orphanage and what it took to get through that. So I talk about that in the book. But I also talk about then, after I went to the orphanage, a family called the Nelsons brought me into their home. They brought me, my brother, and my sister. It turns out they were all foster home that specialized in families that had multiple kids. So I wound up growing up in a family with 10 kids in the house. There were 8 foster kids and 2 natural siblings, 2 sons. So there was a lot of kind of things going on in that household. What was also interesting too is 2 kids were the same age, 2 others were the same age, and 2 others. So we were like close in age. It's like when I was in high school, for instance, I had 4 of us together in the same high school, in the same classes, although we were not brothers and sisters. So it was very interesting that way. But what happened in the foster home was it became a kind of, that's why I call it the bond, because there were a lot of stuff was happening between us and the sons, the 2 natural sons. 2 natural sons hated us. They hated our guts. And why is that? A number of reasons, but the one that I talk about in the book a lot is it's very tough, and potential foster parents should think about this if they have their own children. It's tough when you bring in a stranger's kid to your house, because what happens to that child is, wait a minute, what about me? And then it becomes 2, and then it becomes 3, and it becomes 4, it becomes 5, it becomes 6, it becomes 7, it becomes 8. By the 8th one, you're way out in left field. And so the 2 brothers really felt a real animosity toward us. So us kids really basically bonded together because of that and became really, really close. Again, we showed up at the house not even know who each other were, and we came really, really close. And we left that house becoming a family, or we formed a family of our own because none of us had a family. We all had similar bad stories, backstories, I call them, about being, left behind by our parents, neglected by our parents, not having parents in some cases. But there was a lot going on, right? So that's how but instead of the book being about, a lot of bad figures about, the statistics out there, like, 20% of girls wind up being pregnant in foster care, or 20,000 kids age out every year. All these figures, that's not what my book's about. My book's about what it feels to be a foster kid. I talk about the very personal feelings of hurt, of anger, of happiness when we shared things. We shared holidays. We used to make up plays ourselves and for holidays and stuff. And just a lot of fun things that we did ourselves we had nothing else to do. So we made up our own things. So it was kind of fun that way. So it shows that kids are very resilient, right? And they really, even put into the worst circumstances, they will make the best of it. So the tagline to my book is, how a mixed bag of foster kids became a family for life. Because that's what the story's about. How, again, if I showed you a picture, we are so different looking. I have a brother that's a bodybuilder. I have me. I have so we're as close could be, because we realized that we only had each other at the end of the day. And the Nelsons, the foster family, turns out were doing it for the money. That's why they had 8 kids. And they had a lot of rotating kids as well, because they got money from the state. So when I turned 18, I was asked to leave the house. And I couldn't believe it. I said, how is this possible? We grew up as a family. I was there from when I was 8 till I was 18, so 10 years. It turns out that the reason they did that because the state stopped giving them money. And it's called something called aging out of the system. Everyone in the foster care knows what that is. But when you turn 18, the state no longer has any responsibility for it anymore. They'll pay your health care till you're 26, but otherwise you're on your own. There's no money for food. There's no money for rent. There's no money for anything, really. You got to figure it out. And for me, being a naive kid in the 70s, in the late 70s, I thought I was getting kicked out because they didn't love me. But I got kicked out really because I wasn't being paid for anymore. So it was a very tough thing to realize. And so I've made it my kind of mission. I wrote the book 4 years ago, by the way. So since then, it started out as being a kind of a memoir for the family, just to tell the story that we had, this amazing story. But it turned into really a book about what it's like to age out of the system. And then what do you do? Where do you find yourself? How do you get your bearings? I tell a story about the first time I went to a supermarket after I left the foster care home. I went to get dinner. I had no idea what to pick. There was aisles and aisles of food. And I was hungry as hell. And I didn't know what to pick because I'd never had to choose it before. And that's the kind of decisions that, aged out kids have to deal with. And it sounds simple and it sounds like, well, you just pick something. But I walked out with a box of elbows and a loaf of bread. So 2 starches. Don't ask me why I did that. But that's what I walked out with. So there's a real need amongst the foster kid community, these 20,000 kids every year that are being left on their own, to help. And so I'm really trying to make it my mission to, first of all, bring spotlight to the issue of aging out. And then secondly, to help these kids. I'm working with kids online. We're doing discussion groups just to give kids resources. I'm not a counselor. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm going to be a technology journalist. So I know how to write. But I don't tell people what to do. I'm not judgmental, but I'll certainly help you figure out your own thing. We'll try together figure out where you can go. So that's kind of my story, so to speak.
Wow.
And go ahead. I'll let you talk about it for a little bit.
And that's a lot. That's kind of a hell of a story.
I apologize for talking so long, but there's so much to tell.
No apologies needed. That's what we're here for, is to create a platform for people to tell their stories, because we want people to tell the stories so that other people can hear and listen and learn, because our system is broken. It's never going to be a perfect system, but our system is broken, and children are aging out every day. And they don't have family. They don't know where to go. They don't know how to take care of themselves. Some don't have basic life skills, and that needs to change. And so by you sharing your story and telling it, hopefully that will help create some of that change. But can you kind of walk us through maybe what like an average day in the orphanage kind of looked like? I mean, did you have people that were parents? Were you on your own?
Okay, citizens of Foster Care Nation, we want to hear from you. We want to hear any stories that you'd like to share with us, anything that might be funny, inspiring, touching, heartfelt, all of those things. That's what people love to hear. So why don't you send us some of your stories? You can reach us at our voicemail line at 413-FOSTER-3. Again, that's 413-FOSTER-3. Now, we're going to assume that if there's any privacy rules that you need to follow, you've already followed them and changed any names that need to be changed, because we will play some of this on the air. We look forward to hearing from you. Now, this voicemail has a limit of about, 10 or 15 minutes, so anything longer than that, just contact me at jason@fostercarenation.com, and we can sit down and talk about your whole story.
In the orphanage, you were segregated into age groups. So I was in the age group from 6 to 12. And in that group, everything was done very communally. You ate together, you showered together, in big showers, obviously, but you did everything together because I guess to control chaos, you have to keep everything kind of manageable. So everyone moves together, you ate in shifts, you did that kind of stuff. But there was a lot of, in the orphanage, we used to have things like they'd have Friday night fights, where if you had a problem with someone during the week, you could have a boxing match with them on Friday. And so, but the problem with that system was there was no kind of policing of if your beef was legitimate or not. So we had a kid named Michael Washington. It was this big kid, bigger than all of us. He was 12 years old, but bigger than all of us. And he would just make up reasons why he wanted you to come in and punch your face. And so he would do that. And one week it was my turn, and I got called in, and I got beat up, but I kept getting back up because I had a good friend of mine who was a black kid from Harlem, who was still one of my best friends, believe it or not. But he was a tough kid, and every time I fell down, he would say, "Get up." And I'd say, "No, I'm not going to get up. He's going to punch him again." He'd say, "Get up." And they'd make me get up because it was true that Michael Washington respected if you got up, and he would stop punching you. He was all about punching you and seeing you fall down and laughing at you. But if you got up again, that was something that caught his attention. And so that was a life lesson for me, and one that I brought with me forever. When something happens and something bad happens, you get up again. And that's what I try to tell foster kids, because we get a bad deal. We've been dealt a pair of twos in the poker game of life. So we've got to play the game with short-handed, but it doesn't mean we can't do it. It doesn't mean we can't stick to our guns. It doesn't mean we can't get up off the mat. And believe me, it helped me throughout life to learn that, you have a light within you. We all have a light within us. We have to let it shine. And sometimes bad things happen that darken that light. So we have to find that light again. And that's what I try to teach kids in foster care is it's not your fault, number one. No one asked for this. It's embarrassing as hell, number two. But number three, you're a person too, just like everybody else. And you can go out there and you can do the things you want to do. and you can help the people you want to help. It's funny that a lot of foster kids go into, jobs that are agencies that help foster kids. And why is that? Because they know what it feels like. You mentioned the foster care system is broken. It is. There are a lot of great stories, though. There's a lot of success stories. So I don't want to say that every foster care situation is bad. Everyone knows a lot of great situations. But again, for those of us that didn't get the good carrot, or never caught the carrot, period, you have to find it within yourself. So that was the life lesson I learned in the home. Another thing I learned in the home was that there's a lot of stigma out there about people just because of who you are. We go to they would take us to a movie theater, let's say, and all the kids would look at us strange, like we were dirty, or we were poor or whatever, because we were quote unquote foster kids. So there was a stigma in this. It's less now, thank God. But in the 70s and 80s, it was bad to be a foster kid. People labeled you without even knowing who you were. So that was something you had to deal with, And then the other thing about the orphanage was that, it was not supervised. That's what it eventually closed because things got so bad that they had to close it. But it was, so you had to learn to fend for yourself, and we all did. And then lo and behold, I go to the Nelson's house and I go into another situation where on the face of it, I grew up in Queens, in Astoria, Queens, poor neighborhood, Long Island City, concrete everywhere, garbage, whatever. Then I get taken in by the Nelsons in Long Island, New York. And it's the greenest place I've ever seen in my life. It's beautiful. I mean, it's heaven on earth. And I'm sitting there going, I can't believe I'm so lucky. I can't believe it. But it turns out the Nelsons was not the thing it was meant to be either. It was also a tough situation that wasn't on its face value correct and true. And I wound up losing that situation too, or wanting to get out of the situation as well, because it was stifling. And then again, you learned how to find it within yourself to go forward. And that's what we did. And that's how it,
That's what I was really kind of wondering, that transition from the orphanage over to the foster care home. What was that for you? Did it really make a big difference? Once you got there, was it that different for you, or was that a difficult transition to go from the larger orphanage setting to a smaller home? Although 10 kids is not small.
Yeah, but at first it was wonderful. It was a beautiful thing. I when I heard the news, I was telling the story thing. I gave away everything I had to all my friends because I didn't need them anymore. I was going to a better place. I had nothing to do with the orphanage anymore. So I shed myself. I tell the book. I left with one pair of shoes, 2 pairs of pants, and 2 shirts and 2 underwear. That's what I had leaving the home to go to the Nelson's house. But again, I was excited, more than excited. So the transition was a good one at first. I was meeting new people, kids just like me, and they were friendly and nice. There were no counselors beating me up. So it was a nice place to be in the beginning, But then as we got older, things started to change because we started to have opinions. Again, what they did like in the orphanage, they treated us all as a group, right? We ate together, we watched TV together, we did everything together. So if I once said I don't want to watch TV, that was not allowed. You had to watch TV when everyone's watching TV, and you didn't watch TV when no one was watching TV. You never went to the refrigerator, you weren't allowed. When everyone else was in the refrigerator, then you were allowed. So you learn these kind of rules, which all of a sudden we kind of feel like, oh my God, this feels like the orphanage. It was very claustrophobic again, And then I got to be in my teens, started having friends from the outside world. And that's when things really became problematic. Because friends would say to me, I can't believe your parents make you clean the bathroom with a toothbrush. And then you have to do that every other day. I can't believe that your parents make you eat the same thing every we had 3 things a week, the same things. Every other day we had the same meal. All these things, and they were like chirping in my ear, right? Before this was all normal to me. So I didn't have a problem with any of this. But once people start telling you there's a different way, you start looking over the fence and going, that grass is pretty green over there, right? And so that's what happens with me. That's what happened to me. I started to get an opinion. And to the Nelsons, that was dangerous. Then I started talking about, I had a whole chapter about what I call the outsiders. And that's our girlfriends, friends, and everyone else from outside the home who couldn't understand the way we lived in the house, the way things were done, the way that we were treated. We weren't allowed to have friends when we were younger. My first friend I had was when I was, I think, 17. And I did that because I was in school. And I stayed after school without telling anyone. I got in trouble for it, but I did it because I was hanging out with friends. So the outside world was not looked at as a good thing to them. And we were taught. And I forget that the Russian, I think he was Soviet premier, his name is Khrushchev, Nikolai Khrushchev. He used to say about the Americans, we will destroy you from within. And that's what she used to repeat to us. You got to remember, guys, there are people out there that are trying to destroy us. When we can only be destroyed from within, she would say. She would repeat that over and over again. So we had that in our head, that outside people were bad. If they said anything bad about the family, that was, they were going against us. Until we started getting older again. Then I'm 17, then I'm 18 years old. My father dies, my real father, my father's father dies. And I'm told about it because I wasn't living with him, obviously, so I was told about it. And he, basically left a note saying how he was sorry for everything that happened and he wished it didn't happen, whatever. But it was very sad for me. And actually I wrote a song about it called Life Without Father and how I missed him. And what's nowhere about that is this guy was a bum. He gave me up, threw me into an orphanage, didn't love me, did everything in the world against me. And here I am when he dies, lamenting his death and saying how lonely I am. Life without father is no fun. I once had a father, but now he's gone. I feel so alone. That's the words of the song. Now, why would someone feel that way about someone that was so bad to them? Because it was my biological father. And to a foster kid, that's very important. Another kind of message to foster parents is don't deny your kids the ability to find out who the parents are. I know it's scary. It's totally scary. But they have to know that. Then they let them choose whether someone who raised me and was really nice to me is better for my life than someone who was toxic and never took care of me. When you get to be 18, 19, you can make that choice. And foster parents shouldn't be afraid of that. There's an old expression of you love something, set it free, and it'll come back, whatever. That's true with foster care. You can't deny the fact that even if my father was a bum, I still loved him in some cases. Is that weird? Yeah, it's pretty weird. It's pretty messed up, but it's the truth. And so I try to tell foster kids, if you want to know who your parents are, find them, because that's a piece that helps you. Even if they're a bum, that still helps you. It helps you know who you are. It helps you know who they are. And again, you also get a better understanding. Hopefully, if you talk to them about why they gave you up, maybe there was a good reason, and they did what was best for you. So those are all the things you have to think about.
Yeah, I do have a question for you about that.
Absolutely.
You mentioned your biological father a couple times here, and I'm in a dad's group that I talk about way too often. I should get paid for all the times I mention this to the guy who runs this group. But yeah, I'm in the leadership of that group, and one of the things that I see so many men who were not necessarily even ever in any kind of foster care or adoption, or oftentimes had really good upbringings. But the father wound is deep in more men in society than I ever would have imagined. How were you able to heal that father wound, or were you?
I wasn't able to feel that father wound. It's still with me today, to this day. I wish I could talk to him to this day to ask him questions. Why did you put us in the orphanage? Who does that? Why did you divorce my mother when she had breast cancer? Who does that? You were drunk. I tell a story about, it shows you what, I have to read one passage. I won't bore you with any more of it. Talking about my life then, living with them. Life at home was also chaotic. My friends and I would watch as my father came home, staggering in broad daylight for my night out. Even from 2 blocks away, we could see him wobbling down the street in a meandering line of drunkenness. Once he walked directly into a stop sign that fell to the ground. I had seen him inebriated before, and this time I thought he was going to safely navigate that sign. But at the last moment, he swayed to the left, tried to right himself, and crashed face first into that sign. I was a young kid, and it took a lot of effort for me to pick him up, drag him home, and put him up the stairs. But the worst thing that I felt about it was that I had hoped nobody had seen me. But later, when I was teased about it, I knew that they had. So what it means is that you're embarrassed. You're embarrassed by your father, but he's your father, So that's, I don't know if I'm answering your question, but.
No, you're right there on it, because most of us who look back on our childhood and look back on who our parents were, most of the men I've met will say one of two things. One of them is either, if I'm half the man my father was, I'll be happy. And the other one is, I don't want to be anything at all like that man.
Right. So one thing I'll say about that, to follow, how did I learn to be a father then? I learned to be a father by not doing what my father did. That's how I learned to be a father. I have 3 children, by the way, 3 wonderful children, and everything is wonderful. But it wasn't easy. And I had to learn by doing, not by someone telling me how to do it. And also, people have bracelets, what would Jesus say? What would Jesus do? My bracelet said, what would my father do? And I would do the opposite of that.
Yeah, that actually, in that dad's group, I was on that group this morning leading a couple calls, and that was part of the conversation is figuring out what you want to be, who the man you want to be is, and what that looks like, compared to what you grew up with, and figuring out who that is. Sometimes that's a great starting point. I don't want to be what I saw growing up, but figuring out who the man you want to be is. How did you figure out who that man was that you have turned your life around? Because my family was a little bit similar. My father was a good dad, but his dad died when he was very young. He grew up from, I think, about age 6. Is 6 or 7, I think he was, when his dad died from some sort of cancer, and he grew up with a handful of men in his life who were not good men. He told one story that of when he said something wrong at the dinner table, did something, I don't remember what the story was exactly, but he ended up with a fork in his head. Not great men is who he had as examples. And he turned that around. He raised 4 kids, and as it turns out, none of us are criminals. We're all actually contributing to the world and doing good things. So what was it about you? What did you decide you wanted to be? And what was kind of your impetus for finally deciding who Angelo was going to be?
You make it a point that, I used to tell people that my situation, I feel lucky. I didn't have a mother and I had a father. I feel lucky. People say, what are you talking about? It's because, a lot of people say, my parents wants me to be a doctor. My parents wants me to be a lawyer. They want me to be this, and I don't want to be that. There's all this stress about that. Well, I grew up with none of that stress. I could have been a garbage man. I could have been president of the United States if I tried hard enough. I became a journalist, a writer, because from a young age, I used to write diaries and write stories. So that was my outlet. I wrote a lot. But it's to answer your question, you can decide who the man you want to be. You know what's right or wrong. If you do this, it's really not a good thing to do. So do the right thing. And all of a sudden, things will start to fall in place one by one by one. It's not a quick process. And it's not an easy process. But you can learn. I can make myself, I wanted to be a well-read person. So I decided to read books. No one told me to do that. I did that. I wanted to, follow the New York Jets. No one told me to do that. I did that on my own. So you can make the reason I say I feel lucky, because I was allowed to make myself. No one formed me. I can't blame my father for being a journalist, and saying I should have been a doctor, but I did what I wanted to do. And there's a danger and a strength in that at the same time, right? The strength is that you literally can be anything you want to be. The danger is you might wind up in drugs. So you got to be careful and you got to be strong. And that's why I said earlier about the light inside. We all have this light inside. Don't forget that light. You have to learn how to focus that light in the right places, And so that's what I did. I decided my life was not going to be what my father did. I was not going to drink and not be with my kids. I was going to have a family. I was going to raise them. And I was going to be with them and everything else. And by the way, I taught them how to play piano too.
Well, thankfully, my dad never tried to teach me anything about music because as good of a dad as he was in a lot of ways, music was not his strong point. I know I sat beside him in church as a kid, and I got his musical skills.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, moving forward, you've decided you really are concerned about these kids who are coming out of care, who are aging out of the system without a strong background. There's I can't remember what it is. There's a YouTube channel out there that a guy has put out, and basically he teaches life skills to kids who want to see it on YouTube. Things that maybe your dad would have taught you that you did not have that opportunity for. If your toilet is messed up, how do you fix that leaky toilet? Stuff like that. And stuff like I think that's amazing because there's a million people out there who have a dad who maybe don't ask me to help you with any kind of construction stuff. I have my dad's construction skills, and they are just about like our singing skills. We built a room in the basement once, and if you took a framing square to that basement, you could not find a 90-degree angle anywhere on any wall, ceiling, corner, anywhere at all. So yeah, that was where we struggled with that. But all these kids have these needs, these things that need.
But you're right. But what I tell kids is there are resources. Just what you said, YouTube, the internet is a wonderful thing. You can find a lot of information there for kids. Friends are another resource that's very important to lean on. Friends that aren't foster kids. I mean, and then people have them. They're out there. Any kind of resources that fill the need that you need. For instance, if you need an apartment, you got to figure out how to get an apartment. Well, there are agencies where you can find affordable housing and that kind of thing. So there are ways to do it. You just have to be resourceful and go out there and find it.
Absolutely. But there's a lot of these kids out here who are coming out of the system who don't know how to go home and to a new home and take care of themselves and lead a fairly quote unquote normal life. For example, my mom always said, no boy of mine is going to go get married to a woman and not know how to do his own laundry and cook some food for himself. So I can make you a mean pot of pasta. I know how to make the sauce. And no, we don't buy the jar of ragu or Prego or anything. It's the real deal, right? Like if you're going to eat pasta at my house, look out because it's coming. We're going to have some good stuff. But,
we already ate.
Hey, you got it. But, those are some of those things that we just don't necessarily, everybody doesn't get a chance to learn that. And so I see where that could be a real drive for you, especially coming out of a home that didn't hand you all those skill sets. So what's that look like for you? How are you helping kids learn those skills? Hey there, Foster Care Nation. If you'd like to find yourself in a group with like-minded people, head over to Facebook, and you can find us at facebook.com/groups/fostercareuj. We've got a group over there where we talk about foster care, we talk about adoption, and we talk about all the things related. If your podcast player allows it, you can also reach down and hit that subscribe button so you get notified every week when we put up uploads. Every Tuesday, a new episode comes out. We'd love to see you next week. Now back to the show.
Well, we take it in stages, right? And the first stage is to look at you personally as yourself. And we've seen a lot of kids coming out of foster care is that they're angry. They're angry and they're pissed off. So that gets in the way of figuring out what to buy at the supermarket or how to get an apartment. Because all you feel is, I hate everybody. I hate the world. I hate him. I hate her. So you got to look at yourself and say, stop doing that. Look in the mirror. So that's what I tell kids. What are you looking at? Are you looking at a person who's content and ready to go? Or are you looking at a person that has no idea what to do? They're all flustered. Or they're a person that says, I don't want to do anything. I don't give a shit. They're basically three kinds of kids that come out of the foster care system. And for different reasons. Some of them are broken. Some of them are shy. Some of them are whatever. So you, again, look at yourself first. That's what you do. And then you figure out, okay, what does this person I'm looking at need? I need a place to live. I need food. So you figure out those basic things. I need a job. Obviously, you got to get a job. Those things. But when you get a job, again, because like me, you don't have parents that are saying you must be a doctor. This is your chance to go, what do I want to be? Do I want to be a writer? Do I want to be a cook? All these things are available to you that no one's going to say no to you. The only one that's saying no is you, personally. You're saying no. I can't be a chef. There's no way. I don't like to cook. Maybe you can be a chef. You just never tried to be a cook. You know what I mean? So I encourage them. The second thing then is to try things. Why don't you try making your own dinner instead of going to McDonald's every night? How about trying to make something? I don't know how to make anything. Sure you do. Go on YouTube, look up a lesson, make a pot of pasta. It's very easy to make. Nothing personal, sorry. But you know what I mean? But there are things you can do that. And then you do it, it becomes a booster for you. Wow, I can actually do this. Then you go on to the next thing. So you build on yourself. You keep building yourself up. And you also do that with friends. You can grow your sphere of friends. I have one friend. Next thing I'm going to have two friends. Then those 2 friends, I'll help them meet. And they'll hook me up with 3 other friends. See, so you start building this network and becoming part of the real world. So you go from being very cloistered and do what you're told, shut up, don't do anything but I tell you to do, to, all right, I'm making the decisions now. And I'm not going to, do drugs. I'm going to do something good. I'm going to do something that makes me happy. That's not bad, So you make those decisions for yourself.
You mentioned drugs, and that's one of those things that just blows my mind.
I've seen it too much. That's why I keep going into it, because I've seen it way too much. Because it's easy. What I'll tell you about drugs and alcohol, it's easy. Don't take the easy way out. I know you're depressed. I know you're pissed off. Drugs are not going to help you. Drugs are going to make it worse. It's going to make you feel good for about an hour and a half, and that's going to make you feel worse. That's not the answer. It's like I tell people, it's like banging your head against the wall, complaining you have a headache. Well, stop banging your head against the wall. You won't have a headache.
Oh, absolutely. That's exactly where I was going. Is we see so many kids struggling with drug choices right now. It's
easy.
It's easy and it's cheap right now.
Yeah, that's part of easy. But the easy part is making a decision to do it. Don't take the easy way out. That's a big thing I harp on, is don't take the easy way out. As foster kids, we have to take the hard way. So don't get out of the lane because we want to go take it easy. Stay in the hard lane because you're going to get to where you want to go. Going into the easy lane is going to send you to Utah. Nothing against Utah, sorry. But you're not going to get to where you want to go. You have a place you want to go. So stop doing drugs, because that's getting in the way of where you want to go.
Oh, absolutely. Because finding that hard way means you have to, number one, figure out where it is you want to go first. And so many young people don't have that. I mean, these, if you're under 18, I'm sorry, but for the young crowd out there right now, the job they want is to play games on YouTube or become a YouTuber and make millions of dollars off of making videos. And that seems to look so very easy. And that's why they all seem to think that that's their career path. Right. And I have bad news. I don't think you're going to be successful.
I wouldn't say that to them. I'd say, great, you're going to be a video gamer. That's great. But let's see if we can make some money first so you can get an apartment, so you can feed yourself, so you can be strong enough to play that video game. Right? I try not to be judgmental and never say no. Unless you're saying, I'm going to do heroin right now. Then I'm going to say, don't do heroin. That's not a good idea. But I'm not going to be judgmental if you say, I'd like to play video games all my time. I'm not going to say, look at these people making millions of dollars in video games. So, we can never sit here and tell another person, that's not good for your life, unless it's something detrimental. I try to, again, not everybody should be a doctor. Not everybody should be a plumber. There's all in betweens. There's lots of different fields. With the internet, you can virtually do pretty much anything you want to and get involved in anything you want to, but you have to show initiative. You have to have enthusiasm and initiative. That's the other thing I talk about. It's about you, right? And what are you doing? Don't ask, what can I get or who's going to give me something. It's what are you doing to get what you want? And I say this like it's easy, but it's not easy. It's not easy at all. But I came from a very, very bad place, and I learned to be hard for the world and learn to be resilient. And that's what you have to be too. That's what the bond is all about. Cheap show. Because, it's about looking around and seeing things are bad and still finding the good in it, finding that silver lining. Everyone has a silver lining. They have a light and a silver lining.
Yeah, that's 100% true. I agree. Everybody does have that light in them. And sometimes in a lot of situations, it gets to where that light is really hard to see and not just assume it's the train coming down the tunnel. And
right.
Yeah.
No, it's not that it's hard to see. It's because it gets dimmed. The light gets dimmed, right? Oh, we have a baby. How cute that is. Don't have babies till you're in the 20s. It's another thing I tell kids.
Amen.
It's too early.
If we were smart.
It's about personal choice, right? It's about personal choice. And you can make the good choice, you make the bad choice. You can say, well, drugs are the good choice for me. Well, if you look at the history of drugs, it's really not a good choice for anybody. So you can't argue that.
Oh yeah. How many famous singers and actors and people of influence have lost everything? Just due to whatever drug of choice it was. And it's usually, from my experience, and I don't want to make a blanket statement on everybody, but usually that drug and alcohol abuse comes from a place of attempting to overcome something bad in their past, some part of their history that leaves them feeling empty. or leaves them feeling too much, and they want to feel the emptiness to get rid of it, and that's where the drug use comes in oftentimes. And so I struggle watching these kids who are hung up in that in order to get away from the struggles that they have in their own mentality. How did you get through that? Because I mean, let's be honest, like, let's see, you that would have been the early 70s you started in all this journey, and there probably wasn't a whole lot of mental health care.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot. There was nothing. And again, the idea of being a foster kid was a total stigma. It was terrible, you know? So again, going to the Nelson's house and going into the public school system, everyone would say, how come Glennis doesn't have the same last name as you? And I say, you said he was your brother, but he doesn't even have the same last name as you. It was all that kind of stuff that you had to kind of navigate and go through, you know? But I said earlier, get up. Remember that expression? Get up. That's how I got through it. How did I get through it? When I got knocked down, I got up again. You have to get up again, because you're going to get knocked down. And it's a cliche, but people aren't judged by how many times you get knocked down. It's about how many times you get back up again, and then what you do with that, right? And that's what you have to do, is you have to learn how to get up. And in the face of that guy punching you in the face, you get up again. And you say, do it again. And then the next thing you know, he's going to say, well, this guy I'm not going to do, my hand hurts. And that's life. That's really his life. Life is going to throw shit at you until life realizes, hey, this guy is not someone to be, mess with. Let him go. So that, you're going to find it's going to be easier once you stay true to your own values, whatever they are.
Talking about your own values, in the dad's group that I joined several years back, one of the very first things that we have started doing with new guys when they come in is understanding their core values. That sounds like something that you understand. Is that something you ever sat down and did officially and figured out what your core values were and what you live by, or is that just something that you came to know because of the background that you have?
I made up my own core values. That's what I did. Again, I told you, I had no parents telling me what to do, so I had to do it myself. So what do I want to be? Do I want to be a nice guy? Do I want to be a bank robber? And I had that choice. I decided to be a nice guy. I decided to be an empathetic person. And I always use the word fair in all my writing, because I believe I'm a fair person. And a fair person listens to other people first, and then I disagree with you. Right? That's how it works. But you still listen. And so if you make those decisions for yourself, okay, I'm going to be a fair person, or I'm going to help children, then you stick to that. Then you have a mission. And that's what it's all about for everyone, right? Everyone needs a reason to get up in the morning and have a mission. And so so my core values are things that I made up. I decided, again, I was not going to be my father. I was going to bring up kids to be happy. They were not going to be in an orphanage. I guarantee that, even though there are no such thing as orphanages now. Now, they used to, in the 70s, they put kids in orphanages, big places. Now they put them in group homes, which are group homes of like 10 or 12 kids with 2 counselors living in a house, because they try to kind of, edge them into the community and whatnot. It's a better way than orphanages, believe me. It's a lot better system. So, there is a lot of people out there helping to do good. There really are, and they should be commended. There's a lot of agencies that are working hard to work with aging out kids. So there is resources, and people are doing good things.
Yeah, and thank God for that, because one thing that I know for a fact is that we will all be dealing with these kids one day or another, whether or not that's in a group home setting, in a foster home, through the adoption world, or if none of that works, we're going to deal with them with the criminal justice system later, typically.
Right. And unfortunately, too, the whole foster care system is kind of invisible to a lot of people. They know about people that are shooting heroin. They know about the opioid crisis, right? But they don't know anything about foster care. It's kind of that's not my problem kind of thing, unless you are interested in adopting or taking in kids. And that's another whole story. But for the vast majority of people, it's don't see, don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know anything about that. Oh, really? There are 20,000 kids aging out every year? I didn't know that. Well, that sounds terrible.
Yeah, I believe the last time we saw the numbers here was, like 500,000 kids waiting for homes right now?
Yeah, I mean, the number is just insane. And the thing is people put their head in the sand because it's easier to do that. If your head's in the sand and you say, oh, I don't know about it, then I don't have to do anything about it. Right.
And where's the telethons for foster care? Where is the, Comic-Con or the Comedian Con, raising money for foster care? You don't see that, right? It's not a disaster relief effort, so to speak. even though it certainly is a crisis. You know,
You've
I
got
don't
that.
see money being sent from the government. You know, all these agencies are underfunded. They're understaffed. You know, it's a real issue that really no one wants to put money to it. You know, it's not first on people's list.
Well, that's the thing. These are our children. You know, this is
Are
our
they our
future.
children? I don't know if they're our children. Are they our children?
Yeah, they're our
You know,
children.
there's somebody else's children, unfortunately.
They are going to be making our decisions when it comes to healthcare and retirement, though, down the road. And so we should really be paying close attention to how well they're being taken care of.
Right. And just as a human being, you should want to hope to help other human beings get through stuff that's that's terrible. It's pretty terrible.
So, yeah, I love your mission of trying to help kids who are aging out of this system. You know, so have you had any real success stories with that?
Just I've helped many kids. I started out being a Big Brother, the Big Brother program, and I worked with several kids in the Big Brother program, just mentoring kids. And I kind of got hooked on the idea of working with kids and felt I had something to give, so to speak. So I got more deeper into it and went into foster care and aging out. And I chose aging out, number one, because it happened to me, but number two, because nobody wants a 17-year-old kid when they're looking for a foster kid, right? They're looking for the 5-year-old, the 3-year-old, the baby, the 18-year-old, 18-month-old baby. So if I'm 16, 17, 18, I'm on a blacklist pretty much. So those are the kids I want to help. And now those are the kids, if anyone's out there listening who can help, those are the ones that need the help. It's the older kids. It's not that they want to be bad kids. They've had bad stuff happen to them. So they've learned bad stuff. But if given the right circumstances, many kids have turned themselves around. I know a kid in Oregon that I've been talking to for 3 years. He dropped out of high school. I helped him get his GED. Didn't have a job. I helped him get a job. Now he's got married, has a kid of his own. He's in his 20s. Has a kid of his own, and is vowing to do right by his child. And that's a success right there. Boom, done. Now it's up to him, wherever he wants to be. He happens to be a welder because he was very frustrated about education and he was always not doing well in school. And I said, you know what? You don't have to be an academic bookworm. Do you like working with your hands? Yeah, let's see if we can get you in some kind of a skilled position. And it turns out, he loved welding, of all things. He became a welder. Because I talk about in the book, my foster father, who was a very kind of mean guy, who'd make us do things around the house. One thing is he would never teach you, though. He handed me a welding torch one day. Said, I need you to weld these things over here. I said, I don't know how to weld these things. And he goes, figure it out. And after about 12 times of doing it wrong, I did it right on the 13th time. So, but the point was, as a kid, we found out what he was good at, and it turns out he's really good at it. And his ambition now is not only to be a welder, but he wants to have a welding company, and have people working for him. So we're working on that now. It's everything is in stages, but there is a path for everybody. No one can ever tell me I can't do anything. There's nothing for me to do. You can't. It can't be done.
So often I hear people say, "Hey, I can't be a foster parent. I could never do that for whatever reason." And
they're legitimate, by the way.
And I agree. Yeah, 100%. If that's not what you're wired for, I don't know that that's where you should be. But it sounds like what you're talking about is if you're a passionate welder, my God, we need people to put airplanes together, boats, right? That all needs to be done. We have plenty of work, and especially in today's economy. I mean, we're in a weird place where we're having a heck of a time. We can't find people to drive trucks to pull containers across the country and deliver goods. There is somebody who you could reach out and mentor in that age bracket, especially that 16, 17, 18, 19-year-old kid who needs some mentorship, and that's a great place to help people. Right.
And again, that's the kind of we are looking. We meaning the whole community is looking for people for it to help. Again, if you're considering, foster care sounds like a good idea, but I couldn't take a kid into my life. Give money. Donate something to the foster care system. There's all kinds of things you can do with it because it is a big commitment, obviously, that you don't want to go into lightly. As I mentioned before, if you have your own children, it's even equally as hard. People say, "Oh, I want to grow my family. It's going to be great." It's more challenging. Don't let anyone tell you it's not when you have your own children. It's very challenging.
Amen to that.
Yeah. So, that's something to think of, but we need help. That's all I'll say. We need help. As aging out kids, we need help.
Amen. Yeah. Who was it? We interviewed Danny Van a while back, and Danny talks a lot about kids aging out of the system because he was also a kid who aged out of the system without that support system around him. And so many people I've seen come out of that system and not do well as they came out, not have the support that they needed. And then you meet the handful of them who have what they need to have a little bit of a support system around them and the grit and the resiliency to go out and create a life around them that's just amazing. And you go, how did he get that successful? What did she have that she didn't have that made her the one who made it to the top?
Right.
And I think that resiliency is a big part of it. And
which is resiliency. Again, it comes from what are you doing? That's what I talk to all of my kids about. What are you doing to, this week sucked, man. I can't find a job, whatever. What are you doing to get a job? Well, I sent in about 10 resumes. So that's not going to get you a job. You got to do way more than that. Life is about effort. It's really about effort. And if you're a foster kid, you have to do twice the effort. But it's twice as rewarding on the other end. Because people always come up to me, it's true, and say, how come you're so well adjusted? How come you're such a normal kid, whatever? And I just want to tell them, you don't know what's inside me. You don't know. I did what I did because I had to do what I wanted to do. I wanted to have my own family, for instance. So I did everything I could to get a good job so I could raise a family. And I didn't get kids first because then I'd be stuck in poverty or whatever. So you have to do things the right way, of course. But that's how you do them. You find a way and the will to do it, and you can do it. Girls and guys, by the way, for a girl, they say it's harder for girls. It's not harder for girls. Girls just have to be, perhaps more adamant about who they want to be and who they don't want to be. If they don't want to be a mother, do not be a mother. Don't get accidentally pregnant. That's just partly your fault for getting pregnant. It's the guy's fault and the girl's fault. So you have to make that decision. I'm not getting pregnant, and then you won't get pregnant. You don't have to get pregnant.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I wish somebody would have told me at a young age that you should have kids after you get a career figured out, because we did it the opposite way because I'm a dummy. And we spent some years struggling.
You just didn't know better. There's a difference.
Well, I knew better. I just was being a dummy. Let's be real honest here.
I don't like words. I don't like negative words. That's all.
Yeah, but sometimes honest words don't sound real pretty, and on this story, that's the case. Is it really? I wasn't chasing a career. I didn't know what I wanted to be, and so I became a father kind of de facto, and then the career came afterwards, and that caused quite a few years of struggle because we've always had kids. We've always had. I mean, when we first got together, we were making $20,000 a year, and we were raising 3 kids within just a couple of years of having been together because, my wife, Amanda, she just ran off with a baby who's making noise, but, she had a little boy when I met her from a previous marriage, and his father had just kind of up and bounced, and her little sister lived with us as well, and we raised her because her mom had a lot of addiction struggles, and then we had one together, and in no time at all, we had 3 kids. I'm making $20,000 a year trying to support a family of 5, and suddenly going, holy crap, this sucks. And it was hard. We had I ate a lot of macaroni and cheese because for 29 cents you could buy a box, and for a couple dollars you'd have macaroni and cheese and hot dogs, and that was a meal. Not a healthy one, but it was food.
Right.
And it kept you alive, and that was it. And nobody was really there to support us through that because, her family wasn't in that position, my family wasn't in that position, and we had to go out and struggle. And fortunately, now we're doing really well, but it's taken a lot of years to turn that around. And so if you're a kid who comes out of foster care who doesn't have that support system around them, you definitely have to be ready to fight the numbers, to know that statistically.
You have to go looking for a support system. Right? You have to create one. You asked me about my core values. I created them. That wasn't flippant. That was true. I created my own core values. That's what you have to do. You have to create your story. Write your own story. You've had bad things happen to you. That doesn't mean that's your whole life. Now what are you going to do about it? You just got knocked down on the canvas. Now what are you going to do about it? You just, someone you really love passed away. Now what are you going to do about it? These are all terrible things that really do happen to people. So I'm not going to be naive and say, everything's wonderful, but it's how you react to things. And again, let's get a tough skin, guys. Really, let's show them who we are. That's what we have to do. Prove to ourselves, number 1, and prove to the world, number 2, that we are somebody to be heard and to be reckoned with and to be respected, really, to be respected. We really, as foster kids, we want respect because we didn't get it. If our parents got rid of us for whatever reason, and we are treated like, aliens. Why? That's not fair. But so that's why we have to work harder. And one day you're not treat us like aliens anymore, and that's going to feel really good.
Well, let me ask you this question. If you had a national platform to be able to talk, to say, you have 5 minutes to talk to all the foster kids in the world, to give them the best piece of advice you could give them for their life coming up right ahead of them, because I know when you're 13, 18 seems a long ways away, but it's not. It's just in a blink of an eye. What would be that 5-minute message you would give to those kids coming up on looking at aging out of the system?
First thing I do is we're in a room together, right? I say, okay, I want you to turn to your left. I want you to turn to your right. You know what you see? You see another foster kid. What does that mean? That you're not the only foster kid. You're not the only one that something bad has happened to. There are many things that have happened to other people, and they've overcome them. There are many things that have happened to people, bad things, and they've learned how to deal with them. People need to, number one, realize that they're not alone, right? There is help out there, and there are people like, you're not the only one that this happened to. You had a bum father who was a piano player. Well, there are other people that had bum fathers who were piano players also. So don't sit there and say, I'm going to do drugs because my father was a piano player who didn't talk to me and drank booze all day long. We have to learn how to collectively work together. Even if, again, and I take it as my own example, I grew up in a household of 8 kids. I never met them before in my life. Actually, 5 kids I never met before in my life. And now they're my blood brothers and sisters. Not my blood, but I treated them like blood brothers and sisters. How did that happen? That happened because I wanted that to happen. Because I wanted to make myself better, and they made me better. So when we're in this room together, these people in this room can make you better. Make some friends with these people. Make some friends with the other people in your world. That's how you can make a difference in your own life, make yourself better. So write your own story, number one. And number two, make it a good story. Filled with a lot of cool stuff happening. You don't have to sit in your room. You can get out there and do things. You're damaged, but you're not broken. I always say that to kids also, by the way. The word broken is a word I never use. Believe me, some people can always be fixed. And so they're not broken to me, they're damaged, ready to be fixed. So that's why I think if I'm elected president, we're going to pay attention to all the foster kids that are aging out in the system. We're going to help them get jobs. We're going to help them, find good influences in their life. And we're going to help them help other kids, other foster kids. I encourage foster kids to look over their shoulder. Look at the kids behind them. What if you were a trailblazer? What if you're a leader? How cool would that be? You know what happened to you. Why don't you try to tell someone else, don't do this because this could happen? Kids need that. They don't know what, some kids have no clue of life outside. They never really paid attention. But guess what? They'll pay attention to another 15-year-old. So I think, and that's what I'm trying to do with these online discussion groups I have. I'm trying to bring kids together. They don't want to hear me talk, really. They want to talk to each other, right? Because only they know what the heck. I can tell them what happened to me. They'll say, that didn't happen to me. This happened to me. Then the kid over here will say, hey, that happened to me too. See, then you put those two kids together. And that's a spark. And it ignites something bigger.
Yeah, it's amazing how many young kids don't believe that they've got the capability to go out and be amazing humans. But, if you just do a quick Google search, you'll find out things like, kids who've been through foster care or adoption. Willie Nelson, a little bit of success in his world. Was it Daryl McDaniel from Run DMC, Sarah McLachlan, Marilyn Monroe? All these people that we know their names and we know their experience. And if anybody knows any of those people personally, I'd love a chance to talk to them. I'd love that opportunity. But there are people who have come out of some hard places and made amazing stories. And
but they also had hard lives. All those people you mentioned were not, well-adjusted people. They had issues in their own lives. But I also would tell kids not to aspire to be Marilyn Monroe or any famous celebrity, but be someone good in your community. Be the best mailman you could be. Be the best plumber you can be. Whatever it is you choose, try to be the best at that. You don't have to be a celebrity to be successful.
Oh yeah. I just want a chance to sit and talk with Willie Nelson. I think he'd be a really interesting guy to talk to. He's one of those guys who I all my life I've known who he was and thought, man, he just seems like a really neat dude.
Yeah, but he's been in a lot of really dark places himself. Been in jail several times. So, it's not okay. Believe it. People go through things. That's why I guess the one message you asked me on my platform was, you are not alone. You were not alone. Michael Jackson, sorry.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah. I don't know how many people really can internalize that. And I'm not just talking about foster kids, but that's across the spectrum. You know, I sat in a meeting this morning with a bunch of dads, and they were talking about some of their struggles they had as kids. And funny thing was, there was about 2 or 3 stories between these probably 15, 20 different guys. But there was only 2 or 3 different stories. I mean, the names changed, the situation changed, but it was all the same struggles. And we all sit in those same struggles.
See, I feel like if you can get someone to realize that, that's kind of a third of their battle right there. Because when you're a foster kid, you feel isolated, right? You're in a home, then you go to another home maybe, or you stay in one home, whatever, but you're isolated. And you don't know what other kids, foster kids like you are going through, but they are going through the same things. So you're not this person that the only one that's ever happened to, and no, it's not. Because when that happens, when you feel like that, you feel terrible. Right? I'm a freak. No one's ever, it's almost like when you break up with your first girlfriend, right? You feel like this is the worst thing that ever happened. This has never happened to anyone ever before. But meanwhile, it's happened to everyone. So in foster care, it's the same thing. It's like, it's terrible. I'm not making light of it, believe me, but we've all been through it, and we can all get through it together. That's why one thing I learned through the Big Brother program is that don't try to teach it, don't try to pontificate and sit on your soapbox and say, you will be this kind of kid, and if you go to college, and there's no one roadmap for anyone. If we learn anything in the world of 2021, it's that there's a lot of different choices out there, and there are a lot of good choices, really good choices.
Oh yeah, yeah. This whole pandemic has taught us all that there's a lot of opportunity to just pivot and find the next best thing and keep moving forward, and that beats sitting still and doing nothing every time.
Right, and the second thing is the internet has allowed you to find groups of like-minded individuals, right? You could find other foster care kids. There's chat groups for aging out, online. So there are things out there. There are resources out there. So get resources. Number one. Oh no, sorry. Let's go back. Let's go back to what I said. Number one is look in the mirror. Who are you, and who do you want to be? That's very important. And number two, then how do I get there? What are the steps I need to get there? I need this, and this. You make a list. Okay, then how do I get the things on that list? And then I believe that it becomes to, okay, now that I've kind of figured this out, what's my core values? Then that's when core values comes in. Because you can't start with core values. It's too heavy a thing, I think, to start with. If I'm don't know what I want to do, and I'm, just coming out of the foster care system, and I'm angry at the world, don't ask me, do I'm a religious person or, whatever. Core values are not what I need right now. I need some kind of help. Physical, tangible help is what I need.
Absolutely.
But don't get down on yourselves. I would say, stay positive. Even though it's hard, it's not easy. Just because your father's a bum doesn't mean you have to be a bum. If your mother's a bum, you don't have to be a bum. You don't have to. If your mother got pregnant when she was 16, you don't have to get pregnant at 16. All these things that, we feel like we look up to our parents, but sometimes it's, your parents didn't do the right thing, and then I wouldn't say that's okay, but it happened. So don't beat yourself up because that happened. It just happened.
Yeah, it took me a long time to realize that of all the mistakes my parents made, they did the best they could with what they had at the moment. And that's all anybody can do. And that's what I'm telling foster kids to do. Do the best with what you can do. You may want to play shortstop for the New York Mets, but that ain't happening. So what are you going to do otherwise? Don't get defeated because the first thing you want to do is not available. There are different ways to go and different people to meet and exciting things to do. And the world is a huge, wonderful, big place. Despite all the politics and crap going on, I try to teach positivity. That's another thing is you go into the world positive and positive things come back. Karma is a big thing. Right? If you're a bad person, why is it that bank robbers always have a hard life? Because they're doing bad things. That's why. Are you telling me that you think politics has a lot of bad problems in it if we focus on that?
I will not go near that, but yes, I am.
Don't worry, I don't chase that either. I stay 100% away from politics. I was really hopeful in this last election cycle, though, that, all thoughts and political aspirations aside, I know that part of Camilla Harris's background was she started in social work, and I was really hoping to see a little bit more push out of that, towards fixing that system than what I have seen so far. So hopefully there's more down the road.
Because it's not on people's radar. It's probably number 27 on a list of 26 things.
Amen.
So we have a lot of work to do, you and I that are trying to help the community, but I'm into it. Again, I'm 62, so I'm in the back nine of my golf life, but I really feel like I have something to give. The start is the book, of course. But it's so much bigger than that. This is just a story that I told. This was my story. And I encourage everyone, by the way, to write down your story. That's one way that's how I worked out my problems, by writing them down. So it's a great way. No one ever has to see it, but you can write it down and talk to yourself. It's a great way to do things. It's a great way to relieve stress.
I love that. Well, Angelo, I appreciate you coming in here and talking about your book and telling your story and reaching for a way to help connect with foster youth that are looking at aging out of the system and trying to help them, and setting up the talks you have with a lot of kids and working with kids through the Big Brothers program, and just being you and helping out the world to become a better place, man. I appreciate you telling us that story today and encouraging a lot of these people who really need encouragement.
Yeah, you're very welcome. And just my final thought is, you may think I'm a wonderful, incredibly attractive person, but I have no hair. My hearing's not so good, and I still think life is wonderful.
Well, I have some hair left. That's all I got you beat on.
I'm jealous.
All of my hair is starting to get lost. It's running on the bottom of my head instead of the top.
But again, I thank you for having me on. This has been wonderful. I think you guys do great work, and hopefully you're going to keep doing it. We need more people like you, is all I'll say.
Well, thank you so much, man. Okay, Foster Care Nation, thank you for listening to Angelo's story. Now take his knowledge and wisdom to heart so you can create love and healing in your family and community. Be sure to come back next week. We have new episodes every Tuesday. If you would like to share your story as a guest, you can reach us at jason@fostercarenation.com. You can connect with other like-minded people on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/fostercareuj. And don't forget, we have an account over at Buy Me a Coffee. It's like a virtual tip jar where you can help us fund our mission for as little or as much as you want. It's at buymeacoffee.com/fostercare. The links to everything are in the show notes on your podcast player or at fostercarenation.com. And as always,
You are so super awesome. I think you guys so cool. Yeah. Thank you for listening. Thanks.
Unparalleled Studios.